is an interview with Mr. Fred Campbell, Campbell, 103 Baylor Drive, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Interview conducted by Dr. Charles Johnson, Center for the Study of War and Society, on January 23rd, 1997. Yeah, and what I normally do is just try to find out anything you want to tell me about your time in service. But I usually start out by asking so what your life was like before you went into service, your family, where you were from.
Well, I was less than 18.
Worked
as a stock boy in a grocery store.
Where were you from?
Fulton, Kentucky. We were about 11 miles from the, maybe 20 miles from the Mississippi River, and they all called us river rats, but we didn't mind.
You come from a large family, small family?
No, I had three brothers.
Three brothers?
And three of them, two of them went into the Army, and one had a heart murmur, so he got to stay out, and I was the only one who went overseas.
So all three of you made it back then?
Yeah. Well, they never left.
Well, I mean, you can get hit in the Jeep accident or something back in the States.
But I like that.
When did you join the service?
I was in about October the 10th of 1945.
October 10th, 45?
44, excuse me, 44.
Okay. You're drafted, by that time
My friends and neighbors called for me. They said, you better come along. I guess I will.
Yeah, they were, by that time, I think they had changed the rules to a point where you couldn't volunteer anymore.
Right.
You had to, they chose you and then they told you where to go.
Well, it was the point that we were graduating on May the 12th or 13th or something like that, and I was 18 on May the 8th.
Okay.
So there's no way I'm going to get to pick my choice.
And where did you go for your basic training?
Camp Croft, South Carolina. It's not too far from Spartanburg, about 6 miles from Spartanburg. And I think I was exceedingly lucky here. They have, let's say you have a train load of go into a camp, 600 people, and a couple of them don't show up, then they go to kind of replacement pool. And they pick, let's say 6 don't show up, then they pick 6 out of this replacement pool. And so that day we had all our bags and everything. We were walking behind the ones who were going to go. And a few didn't show up, and since my name was C, we'll pick him up and put him on that train to fill out the number who was supposed to be there. And so I went.
So you went down to South Carolina then?
Right.
Was that the first time you'd been out of Kentucky, or?
I hadn't been out of Kentucky too many times, to be honest with you. When I got there, we were walking from the yards where we got out to our camp, and I saw these swimming pools over there. And I thought, man, this is going to be nice swimming here in the wintertime here. And I didn't realize just how cold it gets there.
Whereabouts is that?
Not too far from Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Okay, yeah, so it does get cold.
Yes, it sure does.
What do you remember most about your early experiences, your training, your...
We thought we were the cream of the crop. And the sergeants kept saying, boy, I wish I were with you. You all are the greatest. And hell, I thought I could save the war if I just got over in combat a few moments. And after we did our 6 weeks basic, they called us out one day, and the following people report to such and such. That's where the truck drivers went out, and the cooks and bakers went out, and the radio operators went out, and the people for the INR platoon went out. And we went into a specialized area.
Did you volunteer for the INR platoon, or were you selected for it?
We were selected based on some tests that we had taken up at Camp Atterbury. We went to Camp Atterbury right after Louisville, to draw out our equipment and fill out questionnaires and all that stuff about high school education and so forth. It's a military test that you had to take for radios and so forth.
So how many of you were selected for this INR platoon?
There were two platoons of us.
Okay.
2 platoon groups.
60, 70 people?
I don't know, but we got probably that. And
what was that training like?
Well, we would take radios, and you learn to operate the radio field set up. Go out as a group, and you learn how to run wires to and from the area. We had a lot of German equipment, and we were trained on that, what the tanks looked like, what the officers' equipment looked like, the mines and the rifles and everything. And the last week we were there, they brought out these Japanese uniforms, and something's not right here. I wasn't ready for this.
You were pointing towards Europe and not
Right.
towards Asia.
That's right. And it was kind of nice. They kept telling us how great we were, and we were God's chosen people. Of course, we bought that stuff. We were only 18-year-old kids, and yes, sir, I like the Audi. And to this day, I still like. When you got headquarters company, I always like to write an INR platoon underneath it, because we wanted just a bit more of a recognition here.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, sir. We consider we were a cut above the foot soldier. But that's our thoughts.
How long was your training in that platoon? Was it some weeks or?
Let's see. It was about. We did about 16 weeks, so it was about 10 weeks. You have 6 weeks basic, where you're introduced to the rifle and fire on the range, and then after that they pull you out for what you're going to do. Whether you're going to drive a truck or so forth.
The people you were with were from all over the country?
No, not really. A lot of them came from New Jersey, in that area. We had a number of people who were Italian, and in the Italian they had Sicilian in there, and they didn't like each other. And we had some people from the Ohio in that area. Just a general gathering.
How did you get along with all the different backgrounds?
Well, as anything, we would pick out of 2 or 3 people that we could joke and carry out with. So we had a good time. Okay. And of course, I think the Italians and Sicilians kept separate, but outside that, we did real well. We knew we were in there, and everybody dressed alike, and everybody had the same amount of money, so you couldn't feel yourself better or anybody or worse than anybody. And we knew we had a job to do.
What happened then when that training was over?
We had about a 7-day delay en route, and then we went to.
Did you get home on furlough then?
Just that one time, between when I left Camp Croft and went to Fort Meade, and then they issued new clothing, and made sure the records that we had were up to date and all our shots and everything. Then we went to Camp Shanks, which is outside of New Jersey somewhere. It's not on the map. I've tried to find it. East Orange, in that area. And then we stayed there until they had enough to put on a ship. And then we went down to the dock in New York, and we went out.
Was that about Christmas time or after first part of 45?
No, it was the 28th of February when we left.
Okay.
And I remember we were on this ship and standing down looking at the dock, and they threw off the line, and the boat kind of moved away from the dock, and they had this black boy beside me. He said, "I never thought I'd see the day I'd leave our country." And I agreed with him.
Well, it's happened.
Yeah. And then we crossed on the Queen Elizabeth. We went by ourselves, and we were down in the. They had put boards over the swimming pool area, because you could look at the tiles on there, and it showed pictures of fish and Neptune and everything. Well, that ought to tell you something right there. Excuse me.
Queen Elizabeth.
When we were on the Queen Elizabeth, seemed like we were about 5 or 6 levels down into the pool area. And you overcome, you know that if this thing sinks, and we're going across in February and March, there ain't no way we're going to get back up out of this thing, because the light's going to go off. And they said, sleep with your clothes on, and hell with it. Can't make it out anyway, so pull off our clothes and then get more comfortable. So we were on that thing. The first day out, they have these little chow cards, numbers from A to G, I guess, and they start about 5:30. Everybody with A chow card, form your lines. Well, we did that one day, and we got up there, and it wasn't much, kind of greasy, and the tea was lousy. So that afternoon they opened up a stores item, and we got a big box of Dixie cream wafers, and so we ate those things all the way over. The food wasn't quite that good, and then when you get on board, they give you a button, red, white, and blue. One group has red buttons, one has white buttons, and one has blue, and that's divided in the areas of the ship. And they had little guards there where if you were blue button, you stayed in the blue button area. But if you took your button off, you could go anywhere you wanted. It didn't take long to find that out. So we took off our buttons and we roamed everywhere we wanted to go.
Sounds like not a bad trip.
No, we enjoyed it, of course. You might as well make the best out of it. You're by yourself and you can worry, but they don't help. We landed at Scotland, in the Firth of Clyde there at Glasgow. And we got on this train and it took off like it was trying to head. It really went fast. And that was the first time I'd ever seen anybody plow up over the top of the hill. I guess they don't have a whole lot of rain, and of course we plow around the hill.
Right.
Yeah, these people don't even know how to plow. We got down to Southampton, and about 1 o'clock we were supposed to get on a boat, and the boat wasn't there. So they walked us into the town, and there was a camp out there. And we spent the night there, and then we went back to the thing next day, and got on this ship, Langley Castle, I think it was. And I think we were supposed to be on there. I think we spent 2 nights on it. I'm hazy because I can't justify 2 nights just across the English Channel.
Yeah, it might have gotten held up out there or something.
Well, I'll give you a little sidebar on this thing. I was second in the platoon in Camp Croft, and the little sergeant, the little acting corporal, kept saying, I'll need 2 volunteers for it and somebody else. And I told him if I could catch you on a boat, I'm going to throw your ass off. He was on this thing. Well, we got on this boat, and he was the first one I saw, and I got on the gangplank. And hi, Palmer, I'll see you after a while. I never did see that man after that. So when we landed in Le Havre, we went to a little camp up on a hill and spent the night, and then we came back down and got into boxcars. And we went then to Metz, Germany.
Was your platoon still together?
Oh, no, this is everybody on that ship.
Yeah, okay. But were you still with the people you had been training with, or not?
Because, see, I think this is what happened, that we were close to home, so we could make it 7 days and then get on up there. Well, some people were further away from home, and so they had maybe a day or 2 difference. So I didn't see but about 3 people from then on.
Oh,
We were pretty well broken up.
Yeah, so they didn't try to keep that together once you left. Okay.
Actually, from then on, you just filled up a group of people. They needed 25 for this, so they took 25 names and put them there.
Okay.
And we were separated then. When we got to Metz, they issued a rifle to us, and we went around to zero the thing in. And the next morning they called out, they had names of these people to fall out and go to 80th Division. And then when we got down there in the morning, then they called us out and gave us ammunition and 2 bandoliers of ammunition and put us on you get on that truck there. And now that would cut us down to the 317th Regiment. So we went to another place, another big barn, and there was we had a Red Cross girls there with donuts, which was great. And we must have had more than that. We must have had all the replacements for that area, because next morning we got in different trucks and we went up to another place. These are all abandoned cities and towns. And then they called out, everybody wants to go to, they called out these names. These will go to Company A, these will go to Company B, these will go to Company C. And you got the headquarters company, and it was Fred Campbell and Dave Smallwood. I kind of like that. Regiment is a little bit further behind the companies, line companies. And Smallwood was with me, but he had gone to he was in the 2nd platoon, and I didn't know him then. There was a boy from my platoon named Hargus, and he went to a line company. And I have had a whole lot of breaks, good breaks in the Army. And I've often thought it was because had a name of a C, which was high on the list. And if they want to take off somebody, they pick just so many people off this list, and they'd always include my name.
Of course, you can get picked for a bad thing as well as
Yeah,
picked for a good thing.
I got for their best ones, though. That's the best part. Now, let me give you a sidebar on that. We were down at Camp Croft, and we were getting ready to go, first 2 or 3 days there. And the cook said the 13th man, first 13 men out of this, fall in as cooks down to KP. And I was the 13th man. So I went to my barracks that night, and the cook came in and said, everybody on this side of this hallway fall out for KP. Well, that's the second time. And that day, they changed me over to across the barracks. The cook came in again. Everybody on this side fall out for KP. That's the third day. And I'm almost on a first-name basis with the cooks. So then they set up the roster, and that was the 4th day. So my first 4 days at Camp Croft, I was KP. Now back to the thing. Then we went to another area, and this time we've just been getting in trucks, riding all the time. So this day we went down to a house, and the people from service company had been doing the driving and said, anybody want to ride the service company? Well, I thought it's time to go, so I climbed back up in the truck. Like a dumb 18-year-old, I didn't even take my rifle. And I got the service company, and I started looking around. And when are you going to go back down to where we were? And the driver said, we're not going back. And here I am. I hadn't even been in the company 4 days, and I'm already AWOL. So I went around to the captain and asked him, are you going to go to such and such a town? And he said, yeah, get your rifle and come on. Well, I didn't even have my rifle, so I went over, and there's a box of Italian carbines. And it looked like a rifle, so I picked the thing up. And I rode with him. And he got down to the where I knew we were. And I said, I'm getting off here. This is my place. And he said, okay, we'll see. So I rejoined the outfit, the thing. And then we went to my regimental company. And he said, the INR platoon is out there with 3 of us coming in. The INR platoon is out right now, and so we'll let you drive a truck. Can you drive trucks? Sure, I can drive a truck. We've been doing that in training. And so you drive a truck for a while, and then we will, when the platoon comes back, we will let you join it. And I wound up as with the CO's Jeep. We would go get the mail, or if he wanted to go riding, the captain wanted to go riding, I would be his bodyguard, which is not a very exciting life. And I still want to get to my platoon, so I went back when they told us, the first sergeant, I want to join the platoon. I've had enough of this. So he said, okay, you go out this afternoon. And Smallwood and I went out and joined the platoon, and they broke us down. And so the people who would be in the first platoon, these people would be in the second platoon, these in the third platoon, and I was in the first Jeep of the first platoon. And there was a French boy with me. So I like to say I was the third American soldier in several towns there, basically because the other boy was a Frenchman.
Did you? You'd seen quite a bit of destruction as you're going through. Things are pretty much of a mess.
It was so strange. We were in there for a couple of days before we ever saw a German civilian, because they were moving out of the German-French border. They were moving out of the cities and towns. There wasn't anybody in there. It's kind of like going through a ghost town out west.
Were you worried about your future? I mean, or were you 18 and didn't worry about much?
I was 18 and didn't know very much. So I wasn't too concerned about it. You get in the Jeep and they do the driving, and you just sit back there and got in the first Jeep, and we rode like that for a while. My job was to look back and make sure that there was a Jeep behind us. We had a 30 caliber light machine gun on our Jeep. Behind us was a 30 caliber heavy machine gun, and then backing that up was a 50 caliber machine gun. Then we had, I think, 2 Jeeps with just people in it, and a radio Jeep. I think we had about 7 jeeps all total.
Quite a bit of firepower there.
We thought so. Since we're not supposed to be shooting at anybody anyway. We got up to the Rhine River, and without any trouble. The 3rd Army and 4th Division, Armored Division was going so fast that the Germans didn't have any time to put any obstacles in our way. And so when you break the crust of a line and you get on an Autobahn, you go real fast. And they've got to catch up just to get in front of you. So we worked out that real well. We crossed the Rhine River on a landing craft vehicle, the LCVP, which I didn't like it too well because you're out there, it's pretty naked riding across that thing. And then we drove real fast up to Kassel. But before we got that far, my first combat, we had to go find out if we had lost track of the Germans, and so we were having to find them. And we went through about 9 towns, and they weren't around. And the 10th or 11th town, I saw this lady upstairs in her bedroom waving a white sheet. And that tells me that we're getting close. So we went to the next town, and we were in the thing. And I guess we had just gotten past it, and the door opened, and this German soldier threw some water out in the street. And, you know, it was not going right now. So that was the day we were second in the line.
You got a pen on my shoulder?
And that was the first time I heard a bullet fire. And what happened? The Germans had a little old cart with their a little wagon with their guns on it. And when the first Jeep saw them and started shooting at them, they went up a side street. And then we pulled back. We captured these soldiers. We captured were Luftwaffe soldiers. And they didn't want to fight anyway. They were glad to give it up. Well, when we were backing up, they kept saying, open fire. And I was sitting behind the machine gun, and I couldn't see anybody to shoot because it was a crooked street. And then the German down there picked up his machine gun and started shooting back. And you know, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And we're the heroes. But we got the hell out of there. And then we brought back a couple of soldiers, tell them to find out what you can do, what you can find out about them, which is not much. And that was our first episode. And then we went into the castle, the town up there. Oh, we were with I guess it was the 10th Armored. We were lined up outside of Kassel, waiting to break through again. There's a town there. And there had been a German Messerschmitt going around us in a circle out of our range. Well, you keep an eye on it, but you can't do much about it. And there's a little old hill, and 2 P-51s, I think, came over the hill going for the German. Well, it's bad because we were lined up in a straight line, and these 2 planes were coming over. And you don't look at them too long before you start shooting at them. Of course, they saw the bullets or tracers heading toward them. They turned up like that, and we could see the wings. Of course, I guess they cussed us because they missed an easy man there. And then we went into Kassel, and the 69th Division relieved us there. And we were headed towards Erfurt. There's a little town called Gotha, Gotha. And south of Gotha, about 10, 15 miles, is another little town called Ohrdruf. It's a concentration camp there. We went into that thing.
You went in there?
We drove by it, and there were pits up the hill. Looked like maybe 10 or 15 feet wide, and maybe about 50 feet long, and it's covered with dirt, and there was an arm sticking out in one place and a leg in another place. And at the edge of the pit was a cross ties, an iron railroad metal, and then charred skulls there. I don't remember how many there were. So we went back into the camp, and there was a German He was a PW, wearing a PW clothing, and he was well fed, and he had one little bullet hole right in his heart. And what had happened, he had been an SS trooper, and he picked up this German equipment, this PW clothing. And Eisenhower had been in there a couple of days, well, maybe the day before that, and they were telling about this is what happened in the camp, and Eisenhower asked him, why is it all these others are so poor and you're so well fed? So they took off his shirt, and underneath his armpit right here is the blood type for SS troops.
Mm-hmm.
And so they killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And inside there were about, 10, 15 people who had been in the camp.
Mm-hmm.
They had been shot. Which was my first sight of atrocities.
Must have been quite something for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, it was. There were, we had a lot of dislike on them then, but only on the SS troopers. And when we were riding with the Germans, with the 4th Armored, we had the 4th Armored and the 11th and the 10th Armored Division with us. We worked with both of them. And the only time I ever saw a SS trooper alive was the one day that they put on German overcoats. Of course, then they were already captured before anybody had a chance to kill them. They took the 2 boys. We captured maybe 100 Germans there and 2 SS troops. And they took them out and made them dig a hole in the ground. And what the purpose was to take all the German equipment and dump it in the hole. But the kids didn't know that. And this one man he was out of it. He was showing them pictures of his children and his wife and his family. And they kept saying, well, how about the people that you killed? And he gave him the dog tags, and he tied a little stick together as a cross and said, give me your dog tags, because we're going to nail them up here, and they're going to kill you. Well, the little boy, they got the guns and everything else up to the edge of the pit, and the little boy took off his hat and grabbed him by a man by the leg and pointed it in the back of his head and turned around. He was ready to die. Well, the show was over with right then, because we were about ready to pull out, so they lined these Germans up and took off their packs and all the excess equipment and dumped it in the hole and then put them on trucks and took off. And then this was another day, well, right at that same time, we were going west going east, and we were in a little town. The roads were like a bow, and there's a straight line across this bow. We went into the town, and we spent the night here. And somehow or another, we heard 2 German trucks come in that night. And we knew they were in the town. And so, well, we've got a pretty good fortification here. We'll just wait and see. Well, the next morning, a lady came up and said, we've got some German soldiers down here who want to surrender.
This was a German lady.
Yeah. So, okay, we'll take them down. And we'll put them on the road, and the armored would come by a few minutes and pick them up and put them on the truck. Well, we got down there, and they said, there's some more up on a hill up here in another farm. So my friend was the driver, and I went up there. And we went, it was a courtyard thing, so we went through another courtyard, and I looked in there. There were soldiers there, and they still had their rifles. So when we got there, then I think they saw the machine gun on the Jeep, and they started throwing down their rifles and holding up their hand. I mean, this is kind of strange. They were supposed to surrender before we got there. Mm-hmm. What happened? 2 of our platoon had gone up there to get there and tell them to surrender. And the captain said, not yet. So one of them went down to the edge of the courtyard, and he motioned for somebody to come up. About that time, we came up through the other door, which was a bit strange.
Mm-hmm.
We told him to get on down the bottom of the hill. He took the gun of the officer, and then we had to leave. So you're on your own now. Mm-hmm. This happened a number of times. When we were into Weimar, we were driving along the road, and we saw these 2 Germans going across the field. So we told them, stop, come here. One of them started running across it was at the hospital, and we were in the parking lot, and he was trying to get behind the hospital. And my platoon sergeant was shooting at him with a machine gun. Well, the man decided that I better lay down. And he was still shooting at him, and some of the staff of the hospital came out and with a stretcher. And they got through shooting, and the man got up. Never hit him at all. And we told him, get on down the street and go on down and surrender. And we left. But that was a waste. He could have been killed right there, and he didn't have to be, because we could not take him anywhere. We had somewhere to go. Mm-hmm. We went into the town of Weimar. I still think I was the third American soldier in it. And we were driving real slowly, looking everywhere, and in front of us was a German on a wagon. And we had followed him for a while, and I guess he sensed there was somebody behind him, and so he looked around and saw us. And he was driving his wagon, goes, "Tag, you're it." He was only a prisoner. It wasn't important shooting him, because we were going past him. And the time he got into the town, in the main square, there would be others Americans in there, so he could give up.
Sounds like by that time the German army was collapsing.
It was really.
The people in your platoon. I mean, you were a replacement in that platoon. How did you fit in? Did they welcome you? Did they ignore you? Did they just?
We had two people from the South in the platoon. Most of them were from New Jersey, and they talked fast. And they would tell us, do this, and then, what'd I say? I don't know. So they do it real slowly. The other one was called Rebel. He was from South Carolina, North Carolina, and me. But the rest of them were all Northerners. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and so forth.
They had been in the platoon quite a long time,
right?
From early on in the fighting, from the beginning. Did you feel out of place for a while with these veterans? I mean, independent of Northern and Southern.
No, I didn't. They took me under their wing and said, "This is what you do, and this is how you do it." And so I learned, and I followed them and did what they did. And so the man's already been down the road once, and I'm not going to break in new ground. I'll go with what he wants to do. So we had a real good platoon. I was really proud of him.
You don't win burn.
Yeah, one of the things that we wonder about is how replacements fit in to existing units, and some people have told us that they weren't very welcome, not for a while.
Actually, you're not, because you're replacing somebody that they knew. And they had a relationship with the man that you replaced.
Did you ever know who you replaced?
I asked a couple of times, but they never told me.
You assumed that he was either wounded or killed.
Yeah. Some of them came back. They had been in a hospital.
Oh.
And they came back to the platoon. One of them, two of them decided they didn't like that kind of combat, and so they asked to be taken out. We had a couple of them that had been accused of going AWOL, and you can get out of this camp, PW camp, prisoner of war, what do you want to call it, if you go into a platoon like this. And I think really that sometimes if you mess up, boy, we're going to send you to a 9-hour platoon. And they told us, if you let us mess up, we're going to send you to a line company. So I never did find out which was the worst. But it was a great bunch of people, and you wanted to stay with them.
You thought they were pretty good soldiers?
Well, we felt we were cocky as all get out. We would go into a town and see the burgomaster and tell him, we want all your captured German equipment, which include guns, binoculars, cameras, and so forth. And we'll search the town. And if we find that you didn't turn in, it's going to be too bad for you. Well, we had a whole lot of stuff in the back of the Jeep. We could take it back to the cooks and swap them off for cans of fruit cocktail and sacks of coffee and sugar. And did real well. That night when we went to stay somewhere, we would not stay with the rest of the company. we would get off in another town on our own.
So you were pretty independent then.
It was just as independent as a hog on ice.
Do you have a lieutenant for your ranking officer or captain?
Yeah,
Or?
had a lieutenant. He kept saying, going on a trip, if I don't hear from you in 30 minutes, I'm going out there. He would repeat that numbers of times, and he never did show up. He was a real cocky little thing, about 5'5", thought like a banty rooster.
Mm-hmm. Good soldier, or
Never did find out.
Never found out. Eh?
He was an arrogant thing, though. He was the boss. You may not like him, but he was still the boss. He did what he said.
And the sergeants that you dealt with, were they pretty capable people?
Yeah, I think so. The one I was with, the sergeant in our Jeep, he knew what he was doing. I remember one time we were on a trip, and I asked him, where is the front line here? He said, you see that shoulder there? And he said, you see the shoulder on the other side of the road? We own what's between. And one time we were rowing out and lost, and I asked him, why don't you think we ought to put some ammunition in that machine gun? He says, well, they don't know where we are either. We don't know where they are. We just roll around lost.
After you'd seen that concentration camp in Ordorf, did it make you feel differently towards the Germans than you'd felt before? Was this...
Briefly, for a day or two. Mm-hmm. But then I realized the soldiers that we were fighting were not PW in charge of the camps. Mm-hmm. And we didn't find too many Germans who were regular soldiers. A lot of them were just picked up that day and given a uniform and say, delay them as long as you can. Well, they weren't ready to fight. Mm-hmm. The object is surrender without getting killed. The last days of the war, the Germans were coming our way to avoid being captured by the Russians. Mm-hmm. And you just see them on the side of the road. Maybe they were lined up waiting for somebody to come down and take them. We were on the Inns River trying to find a bridge across it. And on the other side of the river was a road up there. And there had been a house. There was a house there in a vacant area and in the woods. Well, we had stopped, and this German truck, left the house and was going across the open area to the woods. And somebody wanted to shoot him. And no, don't. Because the war's over with. There's no point in killing anybody now. Mm-hmm. The next day, the war was over with on my 19th birthday.
That's convenient.
Yes, it is. Because we had heard that there was a group of SS on this mountain pass. We're down in the middle of Austria now. And they weren't going to let us through. Well, we really didn't want to go. Mm-hmm. Because right now the war was with, and we could just sit still. The war's over with, and we could just sit still and get this thing settled. A small plane came over, about like a Piper Cub, and then somebody said they shot it down because we had two airmen, German airmen, captured there. And the next day a Stuka came up, and it was running up and down the valley, and nobody was shooting at it because we knew that the war was over for keeps. The radio, the only sound we heard on the radio was somebody beating on a timpani, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, and that was for hours. That's all they did.
It's over.
It is finally over with.
When did you first come in contact with the Russians?
About 3 days later, we went to. We were going around to the various towns and telling them about, finding out how many people were living in this town and how many were coming in from the other areas. And we went to this town, and we knew that across the river was the Russians. Well, we just wanted to go over and see him. And so we met this man. And that's the one that had his picture taken. Mm-hmm. Now, many months after that, we were in Pilsen, Czechoslovakia, and I was driving for the regimental commander, who was a full colonel, And we had a battalion commander who was a lieutenant colonel. And the battalion commander said, let's go up this road. And so we went up the road and we got into town and we saw the Russian coming toward us. And I think we're in the wrong place. And this is kind of embarrassing here. The regimental commander says, I don't want to have any banquets tonight. That's the least thing we're going to worry with. So we finally convinced the man to show us where the border was so we could get back on our side. And he pointed out, and then we turned around. He said, I want, words to the fact that I want your gasoline. And Shucks, is that all you want? We'd be glad to give you that. And it cost me a carton of cigarettes and a 5-gallon can of gasoline to get out of there. And I don't think we told that to anybody. That was an embarrassment.
Any tensions between Americans and Russians there?
Line companies may be able to tell you that. I don't know.
But nothing that you ran into?
No. Oh, we just had those pictures taken. That was about it.
Yeah. Drink toasts with the Russians, did you?
We had a bottle there. Yeah, we drank some toast.
Sounds like almost everybody did.
When we went through Metz, there was a champagne factory there, and word got out that the stuff was here. So we had a couple cases of champagne. We put it in our Jeep and put a shelter half over, so we sat on top of it. So as we would drive along, every now and then we'd give some soldier walking beside us a bottle of champagne, and he might throw out some cigars and put it and give us. So it was kind of a Christmas present here.
Nice thing about being in a Jeep or in a half-track or something, you can take things along with you
Yes,
that if
you
you're
can.
walking you can't do.
And you also get the hell out of there too.
Oh yeah.
I remember one day, the 69th Division relieved us at Castle, and we were out on a patrol. Well, we met these soldiers, and there was a man out in the field looking over on the other side of the hill, and he was coming back toward us. I remember whether he was running or walking fairly fast, and we figured there's going to be a firefight here in a few minutes. So we were lined up in this woods facing that direction. And the Jeep came by and told us, you come on out because we are going to be replaced. And I made the statement, let's get the hell out of here. And then we did. Well, I happened to be with after the war was over with, I was with the regimental rifle team. And it was a rainy day and we were inside this building, and this soldier who was in the line company was telling about the time he was up there. And somebody said, let's get the hell out of here. But I didn't tell him I was in that group. I kept that one to myself.
You were in Third Army. Yeah. Did you see Patton coming and going?
We did one time. The war was over with, and he had been invited down to our area to give him a demonstration. I don't know what it was now. And our task was to make sure that no German wagons or anything was on the road. And so we were to precede him for about maybe 20 minutes or something like that. And there were troops lined up along the road. We make sure they looked neat. Well, we did our job, and there was a pond there. We decided we would go swimming, so we hid the Jeep, took off our dog tags, and he won't know us from a German, so we got in that water in the pond there. We were up to our waist, so we couldn't see our OD shorts. And he went by, so we just sat there and looked at him like a German would.
What sort of a reputation did Patton have with the guys on the ground?
I think they were impressed with the fact that we covered more territory and had fewer casualties than any of the other armies. Like I said, when you go fast, they got to catch up with you to try to stop you.
Since you were in Third Army, did you have to have your helmet liner on all the time, and you have to wear a tie?
We didn't have ties.
Didn't have ties. I and our platoon kind of went on its own.
Right. I think wearing a tie was kind of a sign of a new man coming on board.
Did you hear any talk about transferring to the Pacific when the war in Europe was over, or did you just think you were going to stay there in Austria or Germany?
I knew we were going to be transferring out because I didn't have more than about 15 points at the most, and it took 85 to come to the States, and I couldn't justify me staying and England, staying in Germany. So I knew, I imagine I'd be going on over to Germany, to Japan. Of course, there are a lot of rumors about that all the time. You believe these things because you want to believe them. But, try to make the best of something that's coming up here.
The 80th Division, though, stayed there in Austria or Czechoslovakia, or?
Oh, now that's a good story. The 80th left Austria and went to town of Fusen, Neuschwanstein there. Then we went to Murnau, which is just south of, which is near Garmisch, and then we went to Czechoslovakia. And about December the 7th or something like that, we went to Schaffenburg in Germany, and then we separated from the 80th, all the people who didn't have a whole lot of points. And then they went on to Camp Lucky Strike and back to the States. I went to Bayreuth, Germany, and joined the 102nd Division. And now I'm out of the 80th. I'm in the 102nd Division, which is out of Ozark, Missouri, and Arkansas, and maybe Louisiana. And then I got transferred from there to the 1st Division. But to get to the 1st Division, we had to carry some equipment, engineering equipment, to Belgium. And we got to Belgium. They said, now you got to go to Paris and then catch a train back to the 1st Division in Germany. Well, we got to Paris and we figured that they didn't know when we were coming, so we're going to stay there a while. So we sold some equipment. We had surplus equipment and stayed there for about 2 days.
How'd you like Paris?
It was all right. With an American soldier, you could do just about anything you wanted to. So you could ride underneath the elevated, the metros, that was for free. And we had Red Cross places there where you could get donuts and coffee and Cokes and things like that. Rather than going to various registration. And they said, no, you got to go. And I'm glad I didn't go.
Yeah, that somebody had to do it, but it's one of those things you just seen somebody else do.
I wound up in the 102nd Division as an orderly to the Chief of Staff.
You must have been a sharp soldier.
Lucky, because I was one of the few that had battle stars and everything. And I messed up there, and they said, all right, we'll let you drive a truck.
How'd you mess up then?
Well, okay, I can tell you this. The Chief of Staff went back to the States, and I was just guarding a house there, and had this little old girl come on in there. And the German civilians who were taking care of the house, they complained about it, and so they told me to go back to quarters. I wound up back in headquarters, and they sent me on. Then they got me on the train to guard that equipment. And then when I got to the 1st Division, I wound up as the orderly for the assistant commanding general of the 1st Army, the 1st Division. Well, I didn't really like that. You ate real well because you ate in the kitchen.
I was going to say you ate well.
You ate well, but you didn't get to go anywhere, and except on weekends. And
you were always tied to this guy, and you had to be close by all the time.
Then he went to pick up his wife, and I got another girl in the thing. Then I went back to the company, 1st Division Headquarters Company, and I told them that I wanted to take all long trips. And most of the drivers, I had girlfriends, and they didn't want to leave at night. So I said, okay, I'll drive all your long trips. And I would take somebody down to Munich, and I'd spend the night there, and then come back the next day. And as long as I didn't tear up the Jeep, they didn't care. We went to Flensburg, which is about 16 kilometers from the Danish border. We picked up a rocket scientist there. And I drove on up to the border to see Denmark. They said, go on across. Now, I don't know, if I get over there, they may not let me back. So it's better to look at it than to get caught there. And many trips to Nuremberg, and I was driving for the Inspector General for the 1st Division. And so we would leave on Monday or Sunday. We'd drive all around the area and come back on Friday, pick up the clean clothes and take off again.
Nuremberg was pretty well wrecked, wasn't it?
It was really beat up. They had some areas there, but basically it was pretty well gone. Cassel was the worst destroyed town I've ever been in.
Was it bombing or artillery or everything?
Bombing.
Bombing.
I don't know the stories about it. Somebody said that they bombed Cassel by mistake, and the Germans bombed Coventry because they had bombed Cassel. But when we were out of town, you could look off in the distance. We knew where Cassel was, and you could see a red glow, about like what you saw in Gone with the Wind, the red glow in
when Atlanta was burned.
right. And well, in that town we were gaining by maybe 100 yards, and that was a pretty good day's work. But I'm back now in the 1st Division,
Yeah.
and I took all these long trips. I really enjoyed that.
So you saw a lot of Germany.
I sure did. Heidelberg. We went to Heidelberg. I was taking this girl to meet her boyfriend up there. She was a translator, I guess. Her boyfriend was in Heidelberg, so I took her up there. And we had, that morning, we ate at a WAC company area. And I remember going in there, and this WAC was the cook. She had on a white smock. Prettiest woman I ever saw in my life. That was the first time I ever saw a lady, American girl, standing behind a stove. And she said, "How do you want your eggs?" What? How do you want your eggs? Scrambled them.
Whatever takes the longest.
Yes, sir. I don't mind at all.
So how long were you in Europe after the war?
About close to 15 months. Well, not my whole time.
Your whole time?
I came back in August of 45 when I started school.
August 46, probably.
46.
46.
46, yes.
Right.
You were doing some figuring. I don't know. What's you figuring? I thought I had it right.
So it sounds like life was pretty good in Europe for American soldiers after the war.
Well, life was pretty good for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't complain at all. I got to see quite a bit of the country. This is not bad for a kid who never been out of the front yard.
Were you eager to get back, or were you willing to stay there
I
for a
liked
while?
it there.
Have you gone back after the war?
We've gone back 5 or 6 times, 5 times, in various places. When we went to Wintersgarston, there was a winery there, because we emptied all the water containers and filled the wine. There was a swimming pool there. Now I went back to show my wife some of the places we've been, and I went into the town. I called it Wintersgarston, and I said, "Where's the swimming pool?" And she said, "We've never had one." Okay, where's the wineries? We've never had one. And I thought, now this is the town I know I was in. But they said they never had one. I figured that she was just young people and they didn't know.
Didn't know. Now you came back to the States. Then did you come back to Kentucky, or?
I went to school at Murray, which is about maybe 50, 60 miles from my hometown.
Right.
The interesting thing was, when we were going to Louisville, there was a soldier from Hickman who they gave him the records. And when I got off the train after I received my discharge, and I was back home, and I was getting off the train, the same soldier got off just in front of me.
That's a real coincidence.
Yes. He went to 3rd Army as a secretary typist, or whatever, clerk typist. So you had a good time too.
And so you took advantage of the GI Bill, went to school for 4 years at Murray.
For 5 years.
5 years.
I spent one time learning to play bridge.
That cost me a semester almost. I understand that.
I'm not too proud of it.
It happens. What did you major in at Murray?
Murray was a teacher's college, and I thought I could be a teacher and I can teach some of these people what I know. Until I didn't practice teaching, and then I realized that I didn't have the patience to be a teacher.
Okay.
So now I graduated in January, and I worked with filing income tax till May, and then Union Carbide had a plant they were making it for the gaseous separation, so I went out there. and I stayed from 51 to 59 to 63 there. Then I transferred down to Oak Ridge as a programmer. And I really like that because this is a kind of a deal that everything originated at Oak Ridge. And I wanted to be under the main tent in this circus. And they said, well, we'll send you to Y12. Well, it's not the same thing because K25 was where all the action was. Well, my boss got transferred to K25, and he took his second in command. And then it wound up, he's at K25, and two of us were still in his department. We're at Y12. Well, he didn't like that idea at all because the only time he ever saw us was when he came over to visit us. So he took us over, he transferred us over to K25. So I got into K25 through the back door. I don't think now that I could even be a programmer. Because now you've got courses in school and you have to major in computer science. But then all you had to do was take a little test to see if you had the capability of reasoning. And that was about it.
Do you think being in the Army made a difference in your life?
I think so. I really do. My field of knowledge is broadened, and I have more of a feeling about other people that I didn't have then, because I was my little group around my hometown was about it. My world was real small then. And I've taken my wife to Europe, and I think for a long time, just the two of us were the only ones that had ever been out of the United States.
Is your wife from your hometown area, or
No,
did you meet her?
She was from Hopkinsville. Now, Hopkinsville, their area, after the Civil War, their whole area left Virginia at Appomattox County and moved down to Hopkinsville in that area. And they didn't get out. And everything there was house and out and about. They had the accents. Well, since the cars have come into the area, they have been marrying in the area and marrying out of the area. And the Pat's lost quite a bit of her accent now. And I think I picked up some of hers.
You met her, did you meet her in college?
Yeah.
Or,
She was in the next class behind me, and that was the one that had the pencil trimmer there, so I would go in and trim my pencils in the morning and talk to her. So it was nice. One thing led to another, and we have one son now. He said something about wanting to be a doctor when he was about 5 or 6, and so we kept at it. You want to be a doctor? Okay, you can be any kind of a doctor you want to. You can pick any school you want to, but you've got to make the grades. You can't play. And he went to Northwestern University.
Very good.
Then he was filling out applications for other places, and he was first accepted at Emory University, then Vanderbilt, then University of Chicago. No, University of Vanderbilt, Chicago, Northwestern University, and then he was accepted at Duke, and he went to Duke.
It's good school, all good schools.
He has a pretty good pedigree there. And then he wound up, he's now working for 3M in Minneapolis as a industrial medicine there, which we see him about once or twice a year.
Well, anything else you want me to know about your time in service?
I had one more story I was going to tell you a while ago.
Sure.
I think I could recall 2 incidents that I thought was just sheer waste. We were with the 4th Army, and I don't know all the particulars. I just saw this and made up what I thought possibly happened. We were with the 4th Army that day, and we were coming into a town, and I saw a GI who had been shot. And right at the edge of the town was a church steeple. It was a church. And when we got down there was a German soldier in the doorway who had been shot. And I figured that he was probably a sniper. And he shot this American, and that made him mad, so they went down and got him out and killed him. And I thought I've always thought that was the biggest waste of a life, because he didn't stop a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the next day or two after that, we I saw this kid had been riding a bicycle on the side of the road, and he had been shot. And I thought there's no reason for him to leave, because there's no way he can outrun a half-track or a tank and a 50 caliber machine gun. All he had to do was just sit there at his place and let him go on by and then surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was such a waste of a life.
Mm-hmm. It's all over then.
Mm-hmm. Now I will tell you this one. This is about winding up. We were with the armored outfit again, and we had been passing tanks trying to find the head of the line. I don't know what we would have done when we got there, but we were passing these tanks, and this one stopped, and we pulled in front of it, and kaboom! He had fired a round down on the bottom of this hill. Was a car turned over on its side, and he thought he might be inside that car with a bazooka. So he put a round into that thing, and I felt the heat of the shell on the back of my neck. And we backed up behind him.
Mm-hmm.
We respected from now on, because that was the front of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about it. That was my career. I'll tell this one, and I'm gonna quit, because this is not a good story. But we would go out and collect eggs in these towns. We drive into town, and it's awful thing, and we walk on a place, and you learn to say "Haben Sie Eier" or "Haben Sie Uhr." "Haben Sie Uhr" is a watch, and "Haben Sie Eier" is eggs.
Mm-hmm.
We had a basket of eggs, and we had black bread, so we would stay away from everybody else. We would just eat our eggs and eat our black bread and maybe whatever and the coffee and sugar. And we were coming back, and there was a company in a woods. We knew they were new because they had ties, and I don't remember what else they had on. And they stopped us, talking to us, and this kid kept looking at the eggs and said, "Well, I wish I had some of them eggs." I said, go down there and get yourself some. "Man, that's looting." "Yeah, but that's all right. You got a gun, you can do what you want to." "I wish I had some of them eggs." "You'll have to go down there and get them." "Well, that's looting." "Well, you're going to do without eggs, too." And that was about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, soldiers are like that. I mean, that's one of the reasons to win rather than lose, because then that kind of thing can happen.
It's been fun. I enjoyed it. There were a lot of times that we didn't know whether we were going to see the sun go down or see the sun come up the next day. But that goes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
We did our job and we got out.
Anything that you remember that was particularly scary or dangerous that you got yourself into?
Well, the scariest we ever got when we were driving in Castle and we were going through the edge of the woods, laughing and having a good time, and all of a sudden he said, "There's a foxhole," and sure enough, there's German in this foxhole, and he was busy making up his flag, and he could have taken us out just like that. So we were far from here to that drawer there from him. We had no idea he was there, and the woods were full of them there. Fortunately, they wanted to surrender.
Mm-hmm. Rather than fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing we figured that helped us was a vacant field and the street over there. And there were some GIs walking on that road. And I guess they thought, well, maybe we can maybe take these out, but we won't be able to take those out. So
Mm-hmm.
they surrendered. And we got the hell out of there.
Yeah, I imagine.
That's
Well,
about it.
thank you.
Mhm.
I